As the U.S. reinforces its allies against what it describes as a Russian threat to invade Ukraine, President Joe Biden has approved sending additional forces to Eastern Europe, according to two U.S. officials who spoke to Reuters on Wednesday. For more on the tense situation between Russia and Ukraine, I'm joined live from Kiev by Philip Crowther, international affiliate reporter with AP Global Media Services. Philip, tell us the latest on the U.S. troops being moved to the area.
Look, you already heard in that report a mention of those 8,500 U.S. troops on high alert already. These are not the troops being deployed to Europe. 2,000 additional U.S. troops are going to Poland and Germany. And let's go through those numbers. 1,700 U.S. troops going to Poland. There's already a 4,000-strong U.S. contingent in the country. 300 U.S. troops will be going to Germany. 35,000 are in that country already at this point. Now, all of those 2,000 troops will be coming from Fort Bragg in the United States, and in addition to that, 1,000 U.S. troops will be moving from Germany to Romania. So those are the latest troop deployments announced by the Biden administration. It is, by the way, insisting that these troops, first of all, are not going to be there permanently, that they are not going to be here in Ukraine, and that they will not be fighting a war in Ukraine. This is seen as a reassurance on behalf of the Biden administration for Ukraine, yes, in part, but more than anything for Eastern European countries with a border to Russia.
Clearly, the international community is alarmed about the likelihood of Russia invading Ukraine. What are you learning from Ukrainian officials?
Well, look, speaking of troop increases, there is going to be one here in Ukraine as well. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced that there will be an increase of 100,000 Ukrainian troops in the next 3 years. So this is a military that is getting bigger. Is it good enough, though, to be able to beat a massive Russian military with over 100,000 troops on the border with Ukraine, but also on the border between Belarus and Ukraine? Most experts would say absolutely not, especially not if there was to be an air campaign included. Of course, at this point, all of that is speculation. Nobody knows what exactly Russian President Vladimir Putin is going to decide he will do next, and he's very much the one who will be making that decision. Now, the Ukrainian military would, though, say that it is much better prepared than it was in 2014. That is when Russia annexed Crimea and when Russian-backed separatists took over large parts of the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine. Now, that's what's happening on the military side here in Ukraine. When it comes to diplomacy, let me take you back to some of what Ukrainian President Zelensky said yesterday during his press conference with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson here, using the future tense when he talked about war. He said this is going to be a European war. This is going to be a fully fledged war. Those are some pretty daunting prospects coming from the Ukrainian president here in Kiev.
And Philip, Russian President Vladimir Putin has spoken for the first time in a very long time. Was there any hope of de-escalation in what he said?
Well, look, just about, because it's essentially a case of choose your headline from what the Russian president said during his press conference at the Kremlin. He did say that he was open to further talks that might lead to de-escalation. That's the positive side of this. But he also reiterated again that, in his view, the West, NATO, including the United States, completely ignored Russia's top security concerns. And let me take you through those that were entirely rejected by the United States and NATO. First of all, for them never to accept Ukraine inside of NATO, that was rejected quite forcefully. But also the request from Russia for NATO troops to disappear from Eastern Europe, essentially, and for offensive weapons to be taken away from the border between Ukraine and Eastern European countries where there is a NATO troop or weapon presence. That's why we are in the situation we are in. That's why diplomacy is not not advancing right now. Now, there's going to be a phone call today between British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Vladimir Putin. Maybe there'll be a bit of movement there, but we have no knowledge at this point of any further real high-level talks. Now, those would happen between the United States and Russia. Nothing planned on that front at this point.